Hi everyone, Katie Winkle here with There's a Balance for That. And today I want to talk about working from the outside in versus working from the inside out and why trying harder isn't the best way to try to meet your goals, okay? So this came up a lot when I was starting my work with working with parents before I evolved into what I do now. And it's this idea that, well, if I just can try harder, I can work easier with the challenges that I have. I can meet my goals and I'll just try harder, and that's how I'm going to meet my goals. And here's the problem with why that doesn't work. It's because we're using our conscious mind to try to overcome what our subconscious mind has available to us. And so if our subconscious mind has information that is not supportive of us meeting our goals, then we're going to have a really hard time fighting that with the fighting that with the conscious mind. And the reason for that is because the subconscious mind controls about 95 to 97% of your reality. It's always running in the background. Any decision that you make or any way that you experience something, you're doing that as if you're wearing a pair of glasses that have the subconscious mind filter on it. And so if you have a filter that it's going to be really hard for you to adhere to a diet, then it's going to be really hard for you to adhere to a diet. And you might not think it's hard in your consciousness. You might go, well, that diet's going to be so easy. All I have to do is avoid eating any kind of bread and pasta, and I'll be able to lose weight. But the subconscious doesn't work that way. The subconscious mind is like, well, we need that. We like that. We like that kind of energy. And so that's something that we're really missing. And if we're really missing it, we're going to do anything that we can to get it, because the subconscious mind hates change. And so when you're trying to change something, even if it's to make yourself better in some way or to meet some goals or to overcome something that's really difficult, the subconscious mind runs like a machine, and it's always kind of just like processing stuff. And when you throw a wrench into the machine that's going to change how it processes things, it's going to try really, really, really hard to keep things in the status quo, because that's how it's used to operating. It's very, very efficient for us. So even though it might not be something that serves us or that benefits us on a conscious level, if something that we really, really want for ourselves, if the subconscious mind doesn't understand what the difference is that we're trying to create, it's not going to do the things that you need to be done to support you in your goals, okay? Here's an example of a way that this works, and I just came across this recently, and I think it's a beautiful example. So there's a lot of information about weight loss, right? And so there's a couple of things in those two words, weight and loss. And so aside from weight just being pounds, it implies that you wait. There's time. It takes time to do this. And then if you think about the word loss, what do we do when we lose something? We go and find it, right? The interpretation of that is that if I lose something, then that means something is missing from my life. If I lose my partner, something is missing from my life. If I lose my keys, something is missing from my life, and I'm going to go and search for something to fill that hole. And so when somebody loses weight, they're losing something that they think that they need to go back and get again. And I think that this is honestly why a lot of people will gain their weight back, is because their subconscious mind thinks that something is wrong and something's missing, so it's going to go and find it. That's just one reason why somebody might gain weight back after having lost it, right? But so instead, if you could change something like that to release, right? If you relinquish it or if you release it, that means that that's not something that you need to go back and get again, right? So that's one thing that you can do consciously, is really start paying attention to the language that you're using when you're talking about the goals that you have for yourself, and give the outcome that you want to have, give that energy. And when you give that energy in the way that is supportive for your subconscious, in a way that it can understand you, that's something that you can start to do to try to help the subconscious mind understand, like, this is beneficial for us. This is what we're doing now. And when the subconscious mind starts to understand that information, it's going to start supporting you in your goals. Now, that is still something that you have to do to try harder. I mean, you have to remember to tell yourself, I'm not losing weight, I'm releasing weight. I'm releasing weight. I release this weight. It's easy for me to release these unwanted pounds. And so when you start reframing things and using language that's more supportive of your goals, you're going to have a lot easier of a time achieving your goals if you're starting from the conscious mind and working your way into the subconscious mind, right? So let's talk about if you start from the subconscious and then work your way out into your conscious actions, which is what I do. I support people with their subconscious beliefs and their subconscious experiences and figure out what are their beliefs and what are their experiences that are keeping them from achieving their goals. And we remove what's not working for them, what's not supportive from them, and we replace what is not working with something that they actually want to create in their lives. And so this is something that can happen in just a few minutes for a particular belief. Let me think of an example of something. Okay, so back to the weight release idea, right? So if somebody is under the subconscious belief that the people in their family are heavy, and as they are a member of their family, they are heavy, the subconscious mind has that information stored in the database. And so until that information that's stored in the database is changed, the subconscious mind isn't going to understand these new inputs, and it's going to fight you in your conscious decision making unless you're able to continue very consistently on supportive, conscious decision making that is good for you reaching your goals. And that means consistency, usually over a very long period of time, for something like weight release. And so that's one example. Another example is I had a woman in this week. I've been working with her for a little while, and I would give her exercises and things to do to follow through on our work together. And it started to become clear to me that she wasn't really taking action on the action steps that are very important for working from the inside out. We would do the balances, we would do the processes to support her in her everyday life, but then a part of that is that she needs to go out and take action on those changes in her conscious life so that her conscious mind and her subconscious mind are working together, and she wasn't really doing that. And so I asked her, I said, well, what's keeping you from really being able to do these things so that you can start to experience your life the way you want to experience it? Because she knows, she's like, I don't want to go back to what I was doing before because that sucked and I was miserable. And now she's like very aware of how her behaviors, how her decisions, and how her actions are really influencing how she experiences success and failure in her relationships, in her health, in her professional life, and with her family. And she's like, I cannot go back to where I was, but I'm afraid to go to where I want to go. I said, okay, well, what's keeping you in this area where you're afraid? And she's like, well, I'm afraid to be vulnerable. And what she realizes is that when she was young, vulnerability was a weakness. You know, how many of us were told, like, if we start crying, well, be brave, dry your tears. That's not something that it's okay for you to be upset about. And so when we have that experience, our subconscious mind begins to be programmed with this from a very young age. Our subconscious mind is almost 100% programmed by the time we're 7 years old. And so anything that's built on top of that from 7 until now, right? Anything on top of that is just going to further anchor in what the subconscious mind learned between 0 and 7. And so when we're working directly, starting with the subconscious and working out through the conscious mind to make these changes, it's important for the conscious mind to also start to change the patterns. And if we're not, then we're going to start to lose that new information that we programmed into the subconscious mind. This is why some of the processes that I use might not work for somebody if they're not taking action outside of it. But if they have the information still stored in their subconscious about how it's hard for them to be vulnerable, it's not safe, it's a weakness, this. And if I'm vulnerable, I'm going to be attacked. Well, that's a reason that the subconscious is going to go, no, I'm not going to do those exercises. And so it kind of starts to sabotage what the conscious mind wants to create. And so when the subconscious starts to have enough information to start behaving differently and giving you the tools that you need to conduct yourself differently and to make different decisions and to experience things differently, then that's all going to snowball with you. But usually there has to be some kind of like click. There needs to be a why that's important enough. There needs to be some motivator that is greater than your limitations. And so when I bring somebody in, what we're doing is figuring out, like, what's your life like? What do you want it to be like instead? And why is that important to you? I could have somebody come into me and say, hey, I really need help losing 10 pounds. And I would say, okay, well, we can work on that, but I want to know what the rest of your life is like too, because typically how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if you're having a hard time losing 10 pounds, what else in your life is just a little bit off? And let's figure out, why is it important for you to achieve the goals? And why is it important for you to have the life that you say you want? And then I'll ask somebody, okay, now that we know why this is so important to you, because a lot of people, they have no idea why it's important for them to have the goals that they have. And if you don't have a big why to support you in your goals, if you haven't sat with yourself to figure out what that why is in creating these changes for yourself, you're not going to meet the goals because the motivation isn't big enough. But if you can identify the why, then you can usually figure out what's keeping me from it. And that's what I do in my very first session with my clients. What's keeping you from your why? And let's do a shift for you to figure out, or let's do a shift so that you have the support you need in your subconscious mind programmed in right there. We take away what's not working for you in that goal and what's not working for you that's keeping you from reaching your goals. And then we put the information in that you need so that you can take conscious action to support that. And that's a much easier way to go than just trying harder, because you're working with that 97-95% of yourself. The information is already stored there. Now you only need the 3% extra or the 5% extra effort in your conscious life to really make lasting change. And this is why it's so hard for people to start from the outside and work towards the inside of change. When you start with the conscious mind, like, hey, I'm going to release this 10 pounds, well, you can start there. But if you have beliefs that I am a member of this family and this family is heavy, or if you have beliefs that it's difficult to release weight, if you have beliefs that there's only one way to release weight, if you have beliefs that it's unhealthy to eat in any other way. All of these things can really get in the way. If you have beliefs that there are certain foods that are really, really bad and unhealthy for you, then they're going to be really, really bad and unhealthy for you. And so you have to really figure out, if you want to reach your goals, you have to start with your why. If you're going to do it from the conscious place, why is this so important for you? What are you going to choose differently? And if you can get yourself to a place where you're highly motivated by your why, and your why is bigger than the challenges that you're facing, then you're going to be able to do that. It's going to take some time, and it's not necessarily going to be easy. It can be much easier if you start by working with the subconscious mind to make sure that it has the foundation that you need to start making different choices. And that's where I work with my clients. And so there's all kinds of ways that people can work through their problems, and it's really up to you to decide what works best for you. If you're wanting your achievement of your goals to come faster and easier for you, I would love to hear from you. Visit my website at there'sabalanceforthat.com and click the 20-minute Q&A phone call scheduler, and we will have a conversation and see if it makes sense for us to work together. And if it doesn't, then I'll give you the resources that you need for you to achieve your goals in a way that's most supportive for you. So thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.